welcome back to my channel. I'm Smoke Sammy, and today I'm sharing some posts from r/amiwrong. Am I wrong for flipping out on groomsmen during bachelor's party? This happened last year, but I was thinking about it recently and wondered if I was wrong. My friend Frank asked me to be the best man at his wedding last year. Among us are 7 other groomsmen, which consist of many of Frank's families, such as his brother, cousins, and other childhood friends. Everyone knows each other, so it's not awkward. As the best man, I've taken it upon myself to be the pseudo-leader of the groomsmen, as Frank says it should be up to the groomsmen to plan out his bachelor party. So, I create a group chat with everyone and ask for suggestions. The first few messages go unanswered, so I ask Frank what he wants to do. Again, he emphasizes how he shouldn't be involved and it's up to the men to decide and plan. So, since we live within a few hours' drive of Las Vegas, I throw out that as a suggestion. Finally, Frank says that's what he'd like to do. I ask for suggested activities, and again, no one answers. I suggest visiting a gentleman's club and going to a gun range where our friend Vince finally responds. We continue to throw out suggestions, but the rest of the party does not respond or provide any input. I go ahead and book us the suite at the Aria, and it becomes a stressful ordeal with no one providing input except for a few friends who wish to join us but are not part of the groomsmen party. We get to Vegas and almost everyone starts complaining. They complain about the hotel, its price, the activities I have planned, places where we're going to eat, etc. We are all arguing in the suite when one of the groomsmen, who hasn't responded to any of the messages, yells, "You're the best man! You need to take charge!" I did. I left you guys tons of messages and no one ever responded or gave me input other than Vince. If you don't like the hotel or anything about this trip, then you should have opened your damn mouth rather than wait until we got here and then start complaining, I argue. I asked Frank for his thoughts, and again, he says he's the groom and it was our job to plan this trip out. I feel like at that point, Frank should say something about how OP did plan it out, and everyone else should have had a part in it since it is the groomsman's job. Finally, Frank's cousin Austin steps in, says, "Okay, fuck it. Come on, everyone. Let's head to the Sapphire and get drunk," he says, heading to the door. Surprisingly, everyone starts to follow him and hoots and hollers. "Damn, man, Austin planned this better on the fly than you ever did ahead of time," said our friend Sean. His tone was said in a way that felt like he was trying to piss me off. The rest of the trip went off without much more arguments, but it left me a bit salty knowing that I was made to look the way I did. Am I wrong for reacting the way I did? Planning out a trip is stressful enough, as it was, but factor in people who expected me to just make every decision felt a bit unfair. Honestly, I'm surprised you still hung out with them after that, because I don't know, that would bother me and I wouldn't want to do anything anymore and I wouldn't want to hang out with them anymore because you did everything. You tried to have people put in their input and nobody said anything. And now that you're on the trip, now they want to say stuff. That's not cool and I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Am I wrong for feeling disrespected and considering a breakup after my boyfriend prioritized his female coworker at a party? I, 23, have been with my boyfriend, 23, for 4 years. Recently, he insisted I attend a party that I wasn't excited about. During the event, he barely spent any time with me and instead spent most of the evening talking with his female coworker. At one point, I joined him and sat beside him, but almost immediately he called over his coworker, patted the space between us, making me move so she could sit next to him. What the hell? I felt embarrassed and hurt. He insists there are no romantic feelings involved, but his actions suggest otherwise. This is not a one-time thing. He has behaved the same way at previous parties with her, even after I told him it bothers me. I feel disrespected and upset enough that I am seriously considering ending the relationship. I think you should. He thinks I am overreacting and says he is going to stop bringing me to parties. Wait, you didn't even want to go in the first place though, and then he convinced you to go, and then proceeded to ignore you because he wanted to spend more time with his female coworker. We have been together for 4 years and I do not want to end things without a good reason. But I am worried that letting this slide will only lead to more problems. Am I wrong for feeling this way and wanting to end the relationship? No. End it now. Especially like having you scoot over and have the coworker sit in between you two. I can't believe he did that, and I can't believe that that wasn't enough of a reason for you to be like, yeah, no, I'm not wrong for wanting this to end. Am I wrong to be mad at my friends for ruining my defense for college thesis? Today I had a defense for my college thesis. I intended to have a defense on campus and rent a room in the library because my house is crowded and I need peace. My friend E intended to join because he wanted to look for thesis materials in the library too. And there was my friend C, who was also having a defense on the same day. When I arrived, my friend C intended to have a defense in the same room as me. We had a virtual defense via Zoom. However, C's lecturer on Zoom told him to have the defense alone and no one else was allowed in the room. Therefore, I was kicked out by C, even though that was the room I booked. Finally, I booked another room, and while I was waiting for the defense time, E came to me and C also came to me after the defense. When the lecturer asked where I was, I said on campus, and my lecturer explained that I had to be alone, the same procedure as C. However, my friends did not want to move out of my room and chose to hide if I was to point the camera at them. Stupidly, I lied to my lecturer and said there was no one to protect my friends. While I was explaining my presentation, C and E were making noises. I felt annoyed because I felt used and belittled. I gave them my room and also left C while she was in the middle of her trial, but she didn't want to do the same for me. Then C and E blamed me when I told my lecturer honestly about their whereabouts. At this point, I felt annoyed and wanted to leave them. Sorry for my bad English. I think you just should have stood your ground, man, and had them leave the room when your lecturer said that they need to leave the room. Like, yeah, like, be mad at your friends because they were being inconsiderate and making noises while you were giving your defense, but I don't know. I feel like you should have just had them leave. Like, see, had you leave. The comments kind of seem to be agreeing with that. This one says, so you chose to have 2 people in the room during your defense after being explicitly told not to have anyone join you. I don't like your friends, but you are 100% responsible for this. To answer your question, sure, you can be angry at your friends, but this is on you. This is your thesis defense. I spent 6 months finalizing mine intensely. I can't fathom why you chose to allow a circus into your room on the day. And someone responded, your friends are being selfish, but you should have kicked them out the second your lecturer said no one else could be there. Your defense, your responsibility. Yeah, so I guess no, you're not wrong at being mad at your friends, but you are wrong for allowing them to stay in the room while you were giving your defense. Am I wrong for canceling a date? An old date of mine wanted to talk. We dated a bit last year, but called it off then. Now we had agreed that she could come over tomorrow, but I had missed an appointment. I texted her, hey, I see that we agreed to meet at 3:15 p.m., but I have an appointment at 2, and I don't know how long that will take. Do you mind rescheduling it if necessary? She wanted to talk about the hows and whys we broke it off then, and somewhere she hopes for a better chance, and so do I. Because mentally we were both in a different place then, a worse place. I had just gotten out of a pretty unhealthy relationship, and she also had bad experiences with exes/dates. I get back that she thinks that's fine. 1 hour later she texts, but question, why can't we meet after your appointment? So I say that this is also possible, but it might be a bit short, and that would be a waste of her time for travel. She sends, oh yeah, well, I already made other plans, but I was mainly curious why you didn't initially say you could come after that. So I say, you could obviously come after that, but it didn't really occur to me because, again, you have a long journey, and I don't know exactly when I'll be ready. And I think it's a shame that you would travel an hour for maybe half an hour to actually sit here and talk. Then it was again, yeah, well, you could have indicated it better maybe. And now I really think, never mind. This woman is really sweet, but the reason it didn't work out completely before was because everything became a problem/point/discussion. For example, if I said, I ate 1,700 calories today, she said, yeah, but why not 1,600? Then you'll lose weight even faster. And if I responded to that, it was always, you don't have to justify yourself. I was just wondering. I don't want to start a discussion. Everything turned into a discussion. Recently, she spoke to me about how I hadn't lost weight in a few months' time. But when I told her she was standing still as well, she told me that it was different. What would you do with this and interpret this? I understand that it might be frustrating for her, but on the other hand, making plans with someone else after 1 hour and then being angry with me is also a bit exaggerated. I definitely wanted to give her another chance because she is a nice woman and really suits me. But when I have these kind of conversations with her again, it becomes a discussion without a real solid reason. I think, oh yeah, this is why I didn't like her that much. I can understand making a discussion out of something that's a need of discussion, but this wasn't in need of a discussion and could have been resolved within 3 to 4 texts. But am I wrong for canceling the date she should have had today because I had no clue how long it would take me? And am I wrong in thinking she might actually not be that interesting after she made plans and tried to put it on me while I gave her an explanation? She sounds exhausting, buddy. Everything becomes a conversation, and then when it does, then she also gets upset because she didn't want to start a discussion. I wouldn't be able to handle that. And honestly, like, no, saying, hey, let's reschedule, you're not in the wrong for that at all. And the fact that you have to come on here and ask just to make sure, like, this is just going to be a problem that's going to keep happening if you decide to pursue this lady. So I think you should just not reschedule and just move on with your life. Am I wrong to feel conflicted about regret for saving the life of a person who didn't deserve it? This is a thing from the past, not a current question, but it still comes to mind and niggles at me once in a great while. So here goes. Many years ago, at an indoor arena of the boarding barn where I kept my horse, a woman was lunging her horse, asking it to circle her at walk or trot or canter or on a long lead line, when suddenly it flattened its ears, even tighter than they already were, bared its teeth, and lunged at her with murder in its slitted eyes. I was watching by the low wall outside the ring. Without thinking, I vaulted in, ran to the horse, which had knocked her down and was trying to stomp her, grabbed the longe line, and with the help of another person got the horse under control, while the woman was assisted from the ring to safety. Then the other horse grabber and I got the horse safely shut back into its stall. I'm in my 70s now, older, wiser, and way less athletic. This was back 3 decades or more when I was fit enough for such heroics. Also, knew horse handling well enough not to get myself hurt. Well, probably not get hurt. I love horses, but they can be dangerous. Well done, right? But she'd bought the young but well-trained and well-mannered horse several months before and proceeded to ruin it with crappy handling and late-night drunken beatings in its stall. Oh my god. By the time the attack and rescue happened, the poor horse was a mental basket case. And yes, people did try to help for the horse, but for various reasons weren't able to. The woman was eventually kicked out of the barn for the abuse and for failing to pay board. No, really? The barn owner was retaining custody of the horse for legal reasons, but the woman snuck back one night, snuck the horse away, and the next morning all but one of the owner's goats were sick and shortly thereafter died? Obviously, I'm leaving a ton of detail out about this so I don't wind up writing a doggone novel, and no, this isn't fiction, it did happen as wild as it seems. I wish it were fiction, the poor horse didn't deserve what happened to it, never mind the goats. Anyway, this woman had a home near enough to lead the horse to it that night, and had, as we later learned, a stable of sorts set up to keep it. Yes, the barn owner tried to get it back, if only for the poor horse's sake. No, it didn't prove possible. We also learned some months later that the woman had a habit of taking the horse out for drunken rides in the woods behind her home, and that eventually the horse dumped her, seriously injuring her. I never did learn anything further about her or the horse's fate. Now, several decades later, I occasionally still think about this and ponder. 1. Was I wrong to save her from a well-deserved stomping that could have easily killed her? On reflection, I generally decide no, even though she brought it upon herself. I believe I did the right thing at the right time without stopping to consider anything but getting the situation under control. That's just what a decent human being should do, right? Well, okay, if I saw someone pushing Hitler in front of a train, 2, was I wrong to join in joking conversations among certain barn friends afterwards about how we should have let the horse get her, not in her hearing? That's a closer call, and one I don't look back on with unvarnished approval. That was mean, but then again, she did deserve consequences for what she was doing, and it helped me blow off some of the adrenaline backlash and conflicted feelings I was having then. 3, was I wrong to be happy she eventually got hurt bad by the horse? Or call it vengeful satisfaction I felt? Probably. It's a shitty thing to rejoice in another person's pain. Oh yes, sure, rough justice was served upon her, but still, I am not fond of that aspect. I wouldn't be surprised if the poor horse afterwards was put down as incurably vicious and dangerous, which actually, as I consider it, was probably the kindest fate it could have come to. Even if she was willing to sell it, no one in their right mind would take on a horse as wrecked mentally as it was by then. So maybe being happy she got hurt by the horse was right as well as wrong? Anyway, let me wrap this up if you made it this far. By noting that no, I don't dwell on this ancient history, I can go months without it crossing my mind, but sometimes it all pops up, and I have to look back at my then self and judge her by the terms of my now self. Am I wrong to look back on all this and judge my thoughts and actions as I have? Well, this one is pretty complicated. I do want to point out, this wasn't specified in the story, but in a comment, OP does clarify that at the time that the stomping was happening, she was aware of the treatment of the horse. In a response to someone saying, "We do the best we can with the information we have at the time," OP says, "This is why I still question my initial reaction to the rescue. We, among the other boarders, already knew that the horse was being abused and had become unhinged by it. We were angry and disgusted for the poor horse and frustrated that we couldn't intervene to stop it for various reasons I won't go into. She had created this disaster in the making and richly deserved payback, and yet in the moment, all that went out of my head when I acted." So for the initial question, am I wrong to feel conflicted about this? No. I think this is a really complicated situation. I feel like it's in human nature if we see something about to happen like that, like our first instinct without even really thinking is to just go and help where we can and get the situation under control before it gets out of hand. And I can't blame OP for that. Like, I feel like it was less about who was getting stomped and more about the fact that somebody was about to. I also want to note that there are other people at this arena, so it wasn't just OP, it was a bunch of people. We don't know how many people were there. We don't know if there were any kids there. Another comment points out, and I really like this, that, if you witnessed her being stomped to death, that trauma would stay with you forever. And OP's like, you know what? I haven't even thought about that. As much as she deserved it, it would have really messed me up as well as everyone else who witnessed it. So I feel like with that, it's not even just about saving this person who didn't deserve it or whatever, but it's also saving the people around you and yourself from having that image in your mind and having to cope with it. So overall, 1, was I wrong to save her from a well-deserved stomping? I don't think so. I do think she deserved it though. I feel like I'm not in a position to judge this person for acting in an emergency situation that I had never had firsthand experience with. And even if she did get stomped and passed away, getting the horse under control was a whole nother aspect to this, right? We don't know if, like, in its rage, it could have gone after more people. You know, we don't want other people to get hurt. So I do think getting the horse under control as soon as possible was the right call. 2, was I wrong to join a joking conversation? I don't think so. I think you're right. She did deserve it. And if it did help you, you know, blow off some of these feelings, these conflicted feelings that you were having about the whole situation, then by all means. Especially because she didn't hear it, so. And 3, was I wrong to be happy she eventually got hurt by the horse? I don't think so. I think she had it coming. That's just karma kicking in. And then one more question. Am I wrong to look back on all this and judge my thoughts and actions as I have? No, this is a very complicated situation with a lot of conflicting feelings and emotions behind it. Like, I don't think you're wrong at all. And, yeah. Alrighty, well, that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this content or if you like me, go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!